Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive, where we plunge into the fascinating, the complex, and sometimes, well, the downright unsettling. Today we're exploring a collection of really chilling Halloween experiences pulled directly from narratives you've shared with us. Our mission really is to navigate these unsettling accounts, dissect the most striking details, and think about what they reveal. You know, about human fear, the unexpected, and that thin line between reality and maybe the supernatural on a night like Halloween. We're talking everything from eerie encounters in seemingly quiet neighborhoods to bizarre road incidents and phenomena that are just, well, unexplained.
Yeah, and it's these raw personal accounts that are so compelling. Many describe people questioning their own perception sometimes years later. That really sets the stage for how we can look at the psychological impact, and the lingering questions these stories leave behind.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right into our first narrative. This one. It's where a seemingly normal Halloween night in the suburbs takes a pretty terrifying turn for a 21-year-old and a friend. So our narrator lived with their friends, Bruce and Ollie, in what they called a small house, nice family-friendly neighborhood. Halloween was on a Tuesday that year. So, instead of big parties, they just decided, let's stay in, watch some horror movies in the narrator's basement bedroom, just kind of relax. Okay, so around 11 p.m., maybe after a couple of movies, they start to get a little bored. Trick-or-treaters are long gone. Most people are inside for the night. They figure, all right, a quick walk might be good before calling it a night. So they're walking through the quiet, pretty desolate neighborhood, and they approach this small park, a park they knew really well, walked through it like at least 50 times, the narrator said. They go in through a back entrance, which was wooded, really pitch black, and they just stop abruptly because they see this figure, completely still, dark, at the path's end. The narrator calls out, "Hey," nothing, no response. They suggest turning around, but Bruce, apparently unusually brave this time, he insists on checking it out. As they get closer, it's clearly a man, hands in his hoodie pocket, head down, but before they can even, think about backing up, they hear this noise. And two more figures emerge from the woods, moving towards them. The narrator just described pure fight or flight kicking in. They sprinted full speed out of that park onto their street, didn't look back.
Wow. That primal fight or flight response, it's so immediate, isn't it? And it's fascinating how a familiar space, like you said, a park walk at least 50 times, can just instantly morph from, mundane to menacing. We often see this when our brains have to quickly reassess a potential threat. It just overrides that cognitive comfort with this instinctive alarm. That sudden shift is deeply unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. And that instinct to run was strong, but the unsettling feeling, it definitely followed them home. They ran straight to the house, locked all the doors behind them. They're sitting in the basement, all the lights off, trying to peek out the windows. Convinced someone might have followed them or maybe seen where they went, they were so scared. Just going back and forth, is this real danger or just some elaborate prank? After maybe 30 minutes, they kind of convinced themselves, okay, they're probably safe, they should try to sleep, got work in the morning. But then, around 2:30 a.m., Bruce wakes the narrator up. Says he thinks he heard something outside his bedroom window. They look out, and there's a pumpkin. It's lying in their backyard, despite having zero decorations outside their house.
Wow, okay. That's incredibly concerning. It crosses a boundary.
Totally. So terrified, they creep up to the living room, lights still off, and start looking out the front windows. Within a minute, there they are. 3 men, standing right in the middle of the road, just staring at their house. They talk about calling the police, but they hesitate. They feel like, what's the concrete reason? The men aren't on their property, right? Just a pumpkin in the yard. It felt flimsy. So they wait there, maybe 10 minutes, just trying to think, making sure the door's locked again. They grab a baseball bat, a kitchen knife. They look out the window again, and the men are gone. They ended up staying awake, watching SparkCenter until morning, eventually just dozing off on the couch.
It's chilling how fast that feeling escalates, isn't it? From maybe a prank to feeling genuinely targeted, especially when it breaches your personal space like the backyard. That psychological impact of being watched in your own home, it creates such a profound sense of vulnerability. And it really highlights that difficult decision people face. It's something unsettling enough to call the police. That gray area, like you said, that's where a lot of fear can fester.
You're so right. That gray area is terrifying in itself. So the next morning, they're getting ready for work. They kind of agree, okay, it was probably just a Halloween prank. Let's just move on. But then, the real twist. The narrator gets to their car, and there's a note on the windshield. It says, "Happy Halloween," with a little smiling face sticker. And below it, this chilling message, "P.S. Good thing you lock your doors."
Oh.
Yeah. Both of them called in sick that day. understandably. It's just a stark reminder, isn't it? Doesn't matter how quiet or nice you think your neighborhood is. On Halloween, anything can happen. Okay, so our next account, it shifts gears a bit. From that suburban terror to more of a spectral encounter. With a deceased neighborhood resident, our narrator lived on this quiet street, and at the very end of the block, there was this big, rundown house. It was across from an unused parking lot and an old, closed bar. Now, the woman who used to live there, before it got all dilapidated, was Mrs. Morgan, described as an old curmudgeon in, like, every sense of the word, apparently always yelling at neighborhood kids for, incoherent nonsense.
Right, and abandoned houses, they often become these focal points, don't they, from local legends or just this perceived unsettling presence. There's this idea of liminal spaces, places of transition or decay, and they seem to invite our projections, our fears, maybe even the supernatural.
Yeah.
A condemned house definitely fits that. It's like a blank canvas for these kinds of stories.
Yeah, exactly. So fast forward about 3 years before this particular incident happened. Mrs. Morgan had sadly passed away. The house was just left abandoned. Eventually it got condemned. Signs on the boarded up windows, doors, the whole thing. Our narrator at the time used to walk back and forth to their girlfriend's house pretty often. A short walk, maybe 4 minutes, but it always took them right past Mrs. Morgan's abandoned place. Okay, so this specific Halloween night, technically, it was November 1st by this point. Around 3 a.m., the narrator's walking home. Supposed to be home earlier, but, fell asleep watching scary movies, eating candy. Classic Halloween aftermath. As they get to their street and start walking past Mrs. Morgan's house, they hear a noise, they pause, then kind of cautiously keep going. And that's when they see something terrifying. The front door. Usually boarded up tight, it was open. They try to rationalize it, maybe the wind. But nope, narrator says it was a beautiful, calm night, no wind. So the narrator stops right in front of the house, looks directly at that open front door, and that's when they saw her, Mrs. Morgan right there, staring back. Knew for sure it was her, even though she'd passed away years ago. At this point, narrator's so scared they just shout something out. Can't even remember if it was words or just noise, and the figure, Mrs. Morgan, steps out onto the front porch and just keeps staring. The narrator finally breaks eye contact and just runs back to their house, keeps glancing back, checking if she's following or still staring. Made it home in like 30 seconds. Didn't sleep for the rest of the night.
That struggle, the mind trying to rationalize the unexplainable, it's so potent there, especially when you're tired, maybe your senses are heightened from the scary movies too. And the narrator explicitly says, they always say that the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest on Halloween, and now I actually believe it. Oh, that really brings up a critical point, doesn't it? About the power of personal, profound experience in shaping belief. It suggests some encounters feel so viscerally real they can fundamentally alter your worldview, no matter how skeptical you were before.
Absolutely. It's powerful stuff. Okay, our next story takes us into a childhood memory. An unsettling tradition involving a Halloween staple. The narrator, between ages 10 and 14, had this Halloween tradition, trick-or-treating with their parents and godparents in their neighborhood. And a definite highlight, or maybe low light, was stopping at the local funeral home. They had a big Halloween party, free treats. But if you wanted a balloon, which, every kid did, you had to shake the hand of someone in this full-on movie set quality gorilla suit. And the narrator hated it because this gorilla apparently shook hands so hard, I borderline thought my hand was going to break.
Wow.
Yeah. So over the years, the narrator developed real anxiety about this gorilla, eventually started avoiding it, got older, didn't care about balloons anymore.
That's a really striking element, isn't it? This subversion of something seemingly innocent, like a festive tradition, into something genuinely unsettling for a child. A figure offering balloons becomes a source of dread. It can even tap into that uncanny valley effect, where something almost human, like a really realistic costume, feels deeply disturbing because it's too close, but still off.
Right.
It triggers this primal discomfort.
Right, exactly. So on this one particular Halloween, the narrator manages to successfully avoid the gorilla guy. Ew. But despite avoiding scary movies specifically to get a good night's sleep, the narrator felt, quote, particularly uneasy and scared that night anyway. Just had a bad feeling. Ended up sleeping on the floor with their chocolate lab. Dad was asleep on the couch nearby, which offered, some comfort. Middle of the night, narrator wakes up, needs to let the dog out. On the way back to the living room, looks through the window and sees a figure that seemed to be just standing there in the street. Narrator creeps to the window for a better look, and swear to God, it was that gorilla holding the balloons, literally standing right outside my house.
No way.
Yep. Narrator wakes up Dad, who was snoring loudly. Dad immediately gets up, opens the front door, nothing. No one in the street, no one around at all. Dad dismisses it. Bad dream, your imagination. Typical dad stuff. They turned the TV on for a bit because Dad could tell the narrator was really unsettled, couldn't get back to sleep easily. But the narrator, even now, still can't explain it. Never had similar episodes, doesn't sleepwalk, doesn't usually have nightmares, just that one time. The gorilla.
The lasting impression of that is really significant, especially that an adult is still reflecting on it, unable to logically explain it away. It really highlights how certain experiences, even childhood ones, can leave these indelible marks that just defy easy answers or dismissal. It really challenges that line between perception and reality, doesn't it? Especially when your senses are maybe heightened by fear, like the narrator described feeling that night, that underlying unease.
It really does. Okay, let's shift now to a more isolated setting. A mysterious event out on a lake. Our narrator chose to skip a town Halloween party. Instead, spent the night with her boyfriend at her parents' camp. It's on a local lake, about 25 minutes from her hometown. They got there pretty late, maybe between 9 and 10 p.m., and the camp was incredibly dark. Void of any streetlights, she said, usually only illuminated by the stars. Just very remote feeling. They stayed up for a couple of hours, talking, eating, just hanging out. Fell asleep sometime after midnight.
And thinking about the broader implications here, isolation often really amplifies feelings of vulnerability, right? It can make unexplained stuff feel even more unsettling. When you're removed from the familiar bustle, your senses get heightened and the unknown feels much bigger, more inescapable.
Definitely sets a mood. So after maybe an hour or so of sleeping, the narrator wakes up suddenly to what sounded like a loud blast like a gunshot, but distorted somehow. Really weird sound. Her boyfriend, still fast asleep somehow. She gets up, looks out the back door window towards the lake, and sees something that looked like a light or a ball of light over the lake. She described it as an orange-colored light, maybe 75 feet out into the lake and what seemed to be floating a couple of feet off the top of the water. Without really thinking, she just slips on her flip-flops, goes outside to the shore to get a closer look. After about 2 minutes, just staring at it, the orange light suddenly changed to a bright purple.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then several white specks of light came out of the purple glow and hovered all around the glowing orb.
Okay, that visual transformation, orange to purple with specks, that adds layers to the mystery. And her detailed observation, even though she must have been confused and scared, it really speaks to how captivating and disorienting the whole thing was. It's like her brain was trying desperately to record something completely outside its normal frame of reference.
Totally. So as she's starting to really freak out, wondering what on earth this could be, she's suddenly forced to my knees by the loud blasting noise she heard earlier, that distorted gunshot sound. She starts to plug her ears, tries to kind of collect herself, turns back toward the house, thinking I gotta get my boyfriend, but then she sees this huge flash. And the very next thing she remembers is waking up in a Tehran deck chair on my neighbor's yard the next morning.
What?
Yeah, and her flip-flops. The ones she wore outside. Gone. She went to the doctor, obviously. Saw neurological specialists. That conclusion. Most likely a vivid nightmare and that I was sleepwalking.
Okay, the standard explanation.
Right. Which would also explain why her boyfriend never woke up through the noise or her leaving. Yeah. However, the narrator firmly believes she saw something otherworldly. Despite not believing in paranormal stuff or aliens before, she says, this didn't feel like a nightmare, it felt real. She can still vividly recall the images, the noises, everything. Unsurprisingly, the experience made her spend a lot less time at the camp after that. So, what do you make of a story like this, where there's a logical medical explanation offered, but the personal conviction, the feeling of reality is just so incredibly strong?
Well, it's a classic example of cognitive dissonance, isn't it? Where someone holds two conflicting ideas, the doctor's explanation versus their own visceral feeling that something real and otherworldly happened. And while, sure, sleepwalking or maybe hypnopompic hallucinations, those vivid hallucinations you can get when waking up could explain some elements. The sheer endurance of that feeling of reality for the narrator, even years later, it just highlights how profoundly impactful an unexplained event like that can be. Our perception of reality is often more fluid than we like to think, especially when we're faced with something truly extraordinary or, deeply unsettling.
That's a really good point. Okay, next up, we have a story about a high school senior's Halloween party. And it turns into this really harrowing escape from a stranger. The narrator's 18, senior year. She's at a Halloween party at her friend Steve's house. Around 11 p.m., police get called, noise complaint. Party scatters, you know how it is. A friend, Amy, tells the narrator, quick, get in this car with Dave, he'll take us to another party. The narrator says she begrudgingly decided to do it. didn't really know this Dave guy. So the car ride is just awkward, just them. Turns out Amy isn't even coming with them. The car smells like Slim Jims and body odor, and it's super messy. Dave is 25, dropped out of college a year ago, has this mask sitting on his lap. His answers to her questions are kind of shaky, nervous, really unflattering. When she asks how he knows Amy, he first goes, "Ooh, who's Amy?" before saying Amy told him the narrator was single. Red flag central.
Oh, yeah.
Narrator texts Amy, naturally. No answer.
Right there. That immediately brings up that crucial point about situational awareness. And those subtle red flags that maybe don't scream danger initially, but in hindsight are glaring. The narrator's vulnerability, unfamiliar car, stranger, evasive, unsettling answers. It escalates that sense of unease so quickly. It's almost a textbook example of how a seemingly okay social situation can just spiral.
Totally. So after maybe 10 or 15 minutes, that felt like forever. They arrive at this house. It's in not a very nice part of town. The house itself is cold, smells awful. Inside, it's dirty. Olive green shag carpet, old brown couch, piles of pizza boxes, beer cans everywhere, lit by just one dim lamp. There's a man and woman on the couch, look passed out or maybe just drunk. In the kitchen, there's Skip, a guy in his 20s, who narrator says looked like he may have been using yellow teeth, bug eyes. And there's also an older silent man, maybe 40s or 50s. Narrator feels sick to my stomach but doesn't run, doesn't know where she is, doesn't know what these people might do. Tries texting Amy again, phone's down to 5% battery now.
Just trap.
Exactly. So Dave escorts her to this screened-in porch. There are maybe 6 or 7 people out there. She feels this brief moment of her life. Okay, a crowd, maybe safer. But there are only 2 other girls, and they looked half naked and looked like they weighed a maximum of 90 pounds. That temporary relief vanishes almost instantly when those 2 girls leave with all the guys from the porch. They just go back inside the house and disappear. So the narrator's sitting there alone. Dave finally says, "I think you're really cute." Starts rubbing her back, breathing heavily. Ugh. Then he steps in front of her, asks if she wants to go somewhere more private. The narrator, she says, in a terrified, cracking voice, refuses. Says she's not that kind of girl. She sees displeasure and anger wash over his face. Tears start welling up in her eyes.
God, that narrative just powerfully illustrates how quickly things turn from uncomfortable to genuinely dangerous. The power dynamics are just chillingly apparent.
Yeah.
And the narrator's quick thinking, her assertion, even in that moment of extreme duress, it's remarkable. In those high-stress situations, that fight, flight, or freeze response kicks in, and her ability to choose flight when the chance came is just testament to her resilience.
Absolutely. Because then, she says, nothing short of a miracle happened. One of the girls who'd gone inside just a minute before starts screaming erratically, just swearing and yelling upstairs. Dave immediately runs upstairs towards the noise, leaving the narrator alone downstairs. Without a second thought, narrator climbed out the window and ran. Didn't care where she was, just ran. Stayed close to the sidewalk. After what felt like a few minutes, luckily she sees a 24-hour Walmart, runs in, has the night manager call her parents. Her cell phone is now completely dead. Finds out she's about 30 minutes from her house. But just as she thinks she can finally relax, waiting for her parents, Dave and his friend Skip walk into the Walmart.
You're kidding? Nope.
They didn't see her, but she couldn't believe it. They were just looking around, like they were searching for something. Or someone. She was paranoid it was her. The next day, Amy finally calls back, apologizes profusely, confirms, yeah, that was Dave she put her in the car with. Horrible friend moment. The narrator, almost 10 years later, still traumatized, but feels incredibly lucky, obviously, to have escaped with no physical harm. It's just...
Wow. What stands out to you most about her quick thinking and just the harrowing details of that night? It really hammers home how crucial intuition and just decisive action can be, right?
Absolutely. The intuition, the red flags adding up, and then seizing that one chaotic moment to escape. It's terrifying, but also, incredibly resilient.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Another trick-or-treating story now, but this one takes a really sinister turn towards the end. Our narrator and her friends, they admit they were maybe a little old for trick-or-treating, but they kept the tradition going, enjoying the elaborate Halloween decorations in this one neighborhood known for giving out full-size candy bars. You know the type. Oh yeah, the jackpot neighborhood. But what's compelling here, again, is how that playful, innocent aspect of Halloween can just flip into genuine threat, catches you completely off guard. That line between a fun scare and real danger can be disturbingly thin sometimes.
For sure. So as they approach one of the last houses they plan to hit, the narrator notices this particularly scary figure on the front lawn. Tall, really still, white mask, black eyes. Looked like a mannequin. As she walks past it, it grabs her arm. Makes her jump, obviously. The figure then gets right down close to her face and says, "Tag you're it," in this really slow, soft voice. Then just runs off into the backyard. They all scream, then laugh, kind of spooked but also amused, run up to the front door for candy, assuming, just part of the homeowner's scare setup. So after getting candy, the narrator mentions to the woman at the door, "Hey, that tall guy you have out there is super scary. Maybe tell him not to grab people so hard."
Wow.
And the woman just looked at me like I had grown a second head. She replies that the narrator was actually the second young lady tonight to tell me the same story, and then says, "My husband's inside and we don't have anyone set up outside to scare you kids."
Chills.
Right there.
Yeah. Narrator was officially creeped out.
That confirmation from the homeowner that it wasn't a planned scare. That's profoundly unsettling. It just dissolves any rational explanation you had, leaving you with pure, genuine fear. Totally. So the group stays out a little longer, but some of them decide, hey, let's walk past that house again, see if the tall guy is back, maybe try to scare him this time. When they get there, the whole house is dark now, blacked out. But the narrator looks into the backyard and sees the same guy, white mask, and he waves at her. Her friends kind of dismiss it, just ignore him, let's go. As they get closer to the narrator's house, she looks back one more time, and the guy is following them. She yells out, "Hey, what's your problem?" The whole group tries to kind of duck and weave, get away faster. Her friends can tell she's genuinely freaked out now. Once they get inside her house, she feels safer, lets her guard down a bit, mind drifts away from the creepy guy. But later, getting ready for bed, she glances out her bedroom window and sees the tall man and the mask in her own backyard, trying to break into the house.
Oh my God, escalation.
Big time. He was shaking the door handle and trying to open the door. She screams for her dad. The man looks up at her window and waves at her again, just like before.
That wave is so creepy.
So creepy. Her dad comes running downstairs, calls 911 immediately. Luckily, police arrive within 2 minutes.
That's a terrifying escalation, though,
Yeah.
from what seemed like a prank or maybe just boundary-pushing creepiness to outright attempted home invasion. And that deliberate, almost non-reactive behavior of the man, the staring, the waving, culminating in a direct threat. That's deeply disturbing. His calm, unblinking presence, that wave. It has elements you sometimes hear about, that disturbing lack of empathy or normal emotional response to the fear he's causing.
Exactly. So the police arrest him. When they take off the expressionless mask, his real face had even less of an expression. Described as clean-cut with short, dirty blonde hair, eyes that didn't even blink, mouth shut. No expression, almost a lifeless look. As they're putting him in the cop car, he takes one last look back at the narrator watching from the window, and this creepy smile came across the lifeless space. A smile she described as being from a person who clearly didn't have a full comprehension of what was going on, or maybe did, which is even scarier. Narrator's thankful it wasn't worse, but still gets horrible flashbacks from that Halloween. What?
Understandably, that's deeply traumatizing.
Okay, our penultimate story. This one involves a hidden retreat becoming a scene of just dread. Our narrator is 16, describes herself as somewhat of an outcast, lived in a small, quiet town, upper northeast US, lots of forests around. She loved hiking, and when she was 16, found this small cave, tucked away deep in the woods, maybe 200 yards off the main road, at the base of a 30-foot cliff. Big opening, narrowed inside, had weird rock formations, and even a small, dark tunnel further back. She used it for 2 years. It was her personal escape. To read, meditate, listen to music, her spot.
Yeah, and that idea of a secret, almost sacred-like space being invaded or corrupted, that's such a common and powerful element in horror, isn't it? This personal sanctuary being breached by something disturbing, it immediately sets this really unnerving tone. It taps into that deep-seated need we have for safe spaces and a primal fear of them being violated.
Totally. So for her senior year Halloween, she decides, okay, too old for trick-or-treating, no other plans. Thinks it'd be cool to get some candles and spend the night in her cave, reading scary stories by candlelight, plan to stay out all night. Around 10 p.m., she's approaching the cave area, and she sees this low orange flicker coming from the walls of the cave. Turns off her flashlight, approaches slowly. Initially, she's just kind of disappointed, like, oh man, someone else found my spot. But what she sees is far more unsettling. 4 women in the cave, probably late 20s or 30s, all holding hands. They were standing in a circle and seemed to be speaking in unison, lit by what looked like hundreds of candles. The women themselves sort of looked ragged, dirty, their clothes being loose and baggy, just odd. The narrator hides in the bushes nearby and just watches for about 7 minutes, trying to figure out what is going on.
That tableau she discovers. The chanting, the sheer number of candles, the strange appearance of the women. It immediately evokes this powerful sense of ritual, right? Or something ancient, something deeply unsettling. When people gather like that, in unison for some kind of ritual purpose, especially in an isolated primal setting like a cave, it can create an incredibly disorienting and frankly frightening atmosphere for someone who stumbles upon it.
Absolutely. And it gets worse. Suddenly, the women stopped chanting, and they all abruptly turned and stared at the small hole in the wall, that little tunnel deeper in the cave. The narrator swears she then heard a growl coming from the cave. Not like a dog growl, she said, but something different, something distinctive. Then she saw a movement from the small tunnel inside the cave. Before she could even process that, the 4 women all snapped their heads back and looked right at me. Through the bush she was hiding in, even though it was pitch dark out there.
Oh, that's terrifying.
All 4 of them, in perfect sync, slowly bring their fingers up and point right at her. Then, in a flash, they all began to run at me. Narrator just turned and ran as fast as I could, hearing behind her what sounded like screaming and laughing or was crying, just chaotic noise. As she gets near the main road, finally breaking out of the woods, she dares to look back. And one of the women is inches from me. Described her as having yellow teeth, her eyes were big and black, and she had the most haunting smile I've ever seen. Narrator makes it home, crying hysterically. She's 26 now, says she still have not gone into another forest by myself. Can't blame her. Still unsure if it was some elaborate, terrifying prank or something real, but she never went back to find out.
That chilling effect of perfect synchronicity, especially in a threatening context like that, it's just profoundly impactful. The growl from the cave, then the group's sudden, impossible awareness of her, and that coordinated pursuit. It just heightens that sense of the uncanny, the unnatural. And whether it was a prank, an unbelievably cruel one, or something genuinely unexplainable, the psychological effect of being pursued like that by this unknown, seemingly ritualistic group, it can be deeply traumatizing. Leaves a lasting mark on your sense of safety in the world for sure.
No kidding. Okay, our final story tonight. This one brings us to a more contemporary kind of horror, road rage. Our antagonist, let's call him Josh, apparently saw driving as a competitive sport, had, quote, no safety concern for himself, his Corolla, or anything else. You know the type.
Unfortunately, yes.
So Josh is getting off an exit, hits 5-mile-an-hour traffic, typical. Tries to cut in front of a green Honda Civic. Civic won't let him in, blocks him. Josh takes this personally, sees it as a game of chicken he refuses to lose, thinks the other guy better have good insurance, aggressive mindset. He finally forces his way in front, feeling victorious. Emperor of the off-ramp. The Civic honks, naturally, so Josh retaliates. Starts blocking the Civic repeatedly, switching lanes just to stay ahead, feeling, narrator says, like Emperor Palpatine, just reveling in it. Finally lets the Civic stall behind him and drives away, thinking, smell you later. Total jerk move.
What's really fascinating, or maybe disturbing, here is how that everyday context of road rage just escalates way beyond petty frustration. And Josh's almost gleeful embrace of it. He's reveling in this perceived power dynamic, engaging in what psychologists might call aggressive, maybe even impulsive behavior. It almost feels like he's setting himself up, narratively speaking, for some kind of dramatic fall.
Well, you might be right. An hour later, Josh is sitting at the Roca Diner, eating chicken wings and fries, feeling pretty proud of his earlier road rage performance, eating sloppily, ignoring other patrons, just in his own world. Suddenly, a loud car horn blares outside, makes him jump, and in that split second, a chicken bone slides down his wet tongue and right into his throat. He starts choking, can't breathe, banging madly on the counter, falls off his stool onto the floor, vision blurring, brain losing oxygen. People around him start screaming. Someone calls 911, but it's clearly too late. A futile gesture. His lips turn dark blue, eyes bulge out. Grim scene. But just before he dies, Josh looks out the diner window. He sees a chorus of black dots circle around the setting sun. Weird visual. And then, in the parking lot, directly in his line of sight, he sees a skinny, tall figure standing in front of a green Civic. It was smiling.
Wow. Okay. That ending, it really makes you ponder the nature of fate or consequence, doesn't it? Was his death just a tragic, horrible accident, a freak occurrence? Or did his aggressive, almost gleeful antagonism on the road somehow, I don't know, lead him to this chilling, possibly supernatural end? It forces you to consider, is there always a hidden price for our actions, even seemingly minor ones? Or perhaps more scientifically, does our subconscious maybe link unrelated events in moments of extreme stress? Or is it just the dying brain's final distorted perceptions creating meaning where there is none? It leaves you hanging.
It really does. We've journeyed through some truly unsettling narratives tonight, haven't we? From those suburban scares and maybe reanimated figures to unsettling gorillas, mysterious lights on the lake, terrifying stranger encounters, that attempted break-in, the cave ritual, and finally, that chilling end to road rage. Each story, really, in its own way, peels back that veneer of the ordinary, doesn't it? To reveal something genuinely unsettling, lurking just beneath the surface.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, like we've been saying, so many of these accounts leave us with these lingering questions. No easy answers. They blur the lines between what's truly happening, what's being perceived, and maybe what the mind itself constructs under duress or fear. It really encourages us and you listening to consider, what are the true boundaries of reality, especially on a night like Halloween, when the familiar can feel so completely transformed? And how do these intensely personal experiences shape our collective understanding or maybe fear of the unknown?
Well said. We hope these deep dives into the source material have given you plenty to think about tonight, maybe even spark some new questions for you to explore. We're always here trying to help make sense of the information, the stories that matter most. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. It really helps us out. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back soon with another fascinating discussion.